To achieve success, spend a day in your client's shoes with Jim Armstrong, episode 150. Are you ready to make your law firm a profit-generating machine that will free up your time and skyrocket your impact? With more than 2 decades of business growth experience and having proven that you can be successful while prioritizing your family and your impact, introducing the Profit with Law podcast. I am your host, the creator of the firm differentiator 10X Effect, Moshe Amsel. Well, hello and welcome to the Profit with Law podcast. I'm your host, Moshe Amsel, and today I have another stellar guest interview for you, and I'm excited because this is a different kind of interview than some of the recent ones that I've been having. And this is not a guru who's going to help you grow your firm, but it is something that is going to really highlight and demonstrate to you some of the things that you might be doing wrong, or you affirm what you might be doing right. So really excited to have Jim Armstrong from the FOTA Project here with me today. Let me tell you a bit about Jim. He was connected to me through Maddie Martin from Smith AI. I mentioned her a lot here on the podcast. We're good friends, and really love what Maddie does on the growth side with Smith. And she's constantly connecting with more people, bringing new people on to do joint webinars with her. And, you know, when she met Jim, she thought of me and reached out and said, hey, you have to meet Jim. So really excited to have Jim here with us. Jim Armstrong and his wife, Jolynn, are the husband and wife co-founders of the FOTA Project. FOTA stands for Families of the Accused. When a loved one of Jolynn and Jim's was arrested, they discovered that there are few support resources for the traumatized families of people accused of a crime. That's why they launched the FOTA Project. FOTA's mission is to provide emotional counseling, support, and guidance for the families of people who have been accused of a crime and who are incarcerated. They work through referral relationships with defense attorneys and companies and organizations supporting the legal profession. For more information, visit thefotaproject.org. Now, I'm going to pepper in my own personal experience here. I don't have experience with as a family of the accused, but I do have experience with being in a support system. And I want to share that for a moment before I even bring Jim on. For those of you who haven't heard some of this backstory earlier on in the early days of the podcast, I shared some of this, but I was married, got divorced, had 3 daughters from my first marriage, got married again. In 2013, my wife and I bought our first home, and the week that we closed on the house, I discovered that my ex-wife was an alcoholic. And the kids suddenly moved in with us full time. But when they moved in, these were children who I had, even though I was seeing them every week, they had been scared into submission of not sharing with me what was going on in their home. And they were traumatized. They were, just to highlight, one of the easiest stories to highlight what they were going through, they would stay up at night. Their mother would go out drinking, and they would stay up waiting for her to come home. And one night it was like 3 a.m, and these 3 young girls were awake waiting for their mother, and they called to see, hey, where are you? And the phone was answered by a taxi driver. And he said, she left her phone in my taxi. And they had no clue, like, when is she going to come home? That is the kind of thing that they were dealing with. And so when they moved in, I had to quickly get them help and support and obviously put them each into therapy. But I got introduced to an organization called Al-Anon, which has an Alateen division, which is for kids of an alcoholic parent. And Al-Anon is for family members of an alcoholic or close members in your family circle. And the work that this group did with my kids and with us, it was unbelievable to be able to have that support system, to have the input, the guidance, and just a place to turn when going through an amazingly trying time that just your own friends and family circle have no clue how to help you with. when I went through my divorce, I went through a similar thing where my married friends and my single friends didn't know how to relate to me as somebody who's going through a divorce. And a lot of my friends I lost in that process. So anytime you go through something that is different than what people are used to dealing with, it's a very alienating process. So I'm really excited to bring Jim on the show because of my own personal experiences. I think that they definitely are onto something and have something to share. And I'd love to have you hear it. So Jim, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you so much, Moshe. I've been looking forward to this. Thank you for sharing your story too. It's going to it ties directly in with what we're going to talk about today and what I hope to be able to share. And I should add that we here at the FOTA Project also love Maddie Martin. She's awesome, and I'm so glad that she connected us with you. So thank you for having me on. It's an honor.
Awesome. And I appreciate the time that you're going to give us today. But let's jump right into your story. My listeners, we want to know where you came from. Like what's the backstory? So what were you doing before the FOTA Project? What made you start the FOTA Project? I mean, in the intro, we kind of already alluded to the fact that there's a story there. And what's that journey look like for you?
Well, okay, so our background is my wife Jolene and I are partners in we have a company that provides marketing services to small businesses, and part of those services include coaching, training, sales training, marketing training, and also best business practices. And this is something that was launched back in 2007. I've been doing it for a very long time. And even before that, before I was doing it as my main business, I was doing training, and so that's kind of our wheelhouse. And so we were actually getting ready for a mastermind event that we were putting on for some of our top clients, and we're going to be holding that in Las Vegas. And I'm at the health club. I'm working out. We're actually out in California. We were out there for a few months. Our business is very mobile. We can take it wherever we go. So we tend to bounce around a lot. Our base is in Colorado, but we're out in California, and I'm working out. And normally I keep my phone off. I don't like to be interrupted. I want to focus. And for some reason, I checked it this time, and there was a message, a voicemail from Jolene, and so I listened to it, and she was, Moshe, I've never heard her like this. She was in a panic, and just saying, Jim, you got to get home. And so I packed everything up and got home as quickly as I could. And a loved one of hers, it turns out, had been arrested. He was in the military, and 3 states away. And she got a call from the county jail saying, you have somebody here that that's incarcerated. It was or in jail, whatever this automated thing says. And she knew who it was because of the location. And she then tried to reach him. You can't. When somebody's in jail, you don't get to call in and get a hold of them. You got to wait for them to call you. And he finally called. And, the long and short of it he said, I'm in trouble. I need an attorney. And right then, Jolene and I were spun into what I can only describe as a waking nightmare that we could not get out of. It was like a hurricane hit us. I can't overstate, Moshe, the trauma that somebody goes through when they get hit with this out of the blue. It was almost indescribable. So immediately, Jolene began calling attorneys in that county to line up appointments. And I began making travel arrangements. Like 5 days later, we had to do this mastermind. I mean, people had paid money for this. We had rooms booked. I mean, we couldn't cancel it. And so I'm, arranging a triangulated flight between different cities. She's on the phone making appointments with attorneys, and then we, pack up our bags and we're off, on this whirlwind. And that's how everything started.
That's unbelievable. I'm words can't, I'm at a loss for words just hearing the story. As a parent, and you didn't say who it was, but I think there was an allusion to it, that this was your son somewhere in the intro that I gave. As a parent, if something were to happen to my child, I would move heaven and earth for any of them. And I can only imagine what a phone call like that would do. Now, quite honestly, I put my parents through this when I was 18. I and I've never shared this publicly.
Are we gonna
do it here on the podcast? This is a confessional, right? I did something stupid and I got arrested when I was 18. And so my parents got a phone call, that I had been arrested. My mother got an attorney, got me off. I was able to get out of that hot water. And I've led a pretty straight and narrow path since then. But I can only imagine what I put my parents through. And I've never talked to them about it. I should really bring it up and ask them what that was like. But I couldn't imagine if one of my kids had to go through something like that, what it would be like from the parents' perspective. So I can only imagine how crazy it was, and the fact that you had this mastermind that you had to be at, that created this massive conflict of where do my priorities lie, right? And hopefully you're able to toe both lines. But what if you couldn't? What if it wasn't 5 days? What if it was 2 days? You'd have to figure that out, right? So I can only imagine what kind of stress and anxiety that put on you. Now, I know that you went right into, okay, we had to call a bunch of attorneys and we had to book appointments. And in 2019, the Clio Trends Report highlighted a study that they did where they contacted 2,000 law firms, and they pretended to be a prospective client. And they wanted to see what kind of systems law firms had in place to handle an inbound lead that was coming in through a phone call. And the results that they got was astonishing. Approximately 2/3 of the law firms that they contacted either never returned their call or never got back to them after an initial conversation, which is mind-boggling, first of all, because there are people who are begging me to help them figure out how to bring in new leads, and to think that you're working so hard to get that phone to ring, and then when the phone rings, you don't have a system in place to answer it and deal with it. But it's just telling about how much potential there is out there, that if you do things right, you can run differently. So I want to jump into, okay, what was that experience like for you looking for an attorney? And was this Clio Trends Report accurate as far as you in the client's shoes actually looking for an attorney? Was that a similar experience that you had? I'd like to know more about that.
Yeah. So it's a good question. How many did we contact who never got back to us? I know that happened. I don't know how much. That's a good question. I'm going to find out from Jolene. I'm going to find out the answer to that question, because that's a good one. And to back up to what you said a minute ago, yes, it was Jolene's son, my stepson. I was just referring to him kind of generically because this can be your spouse, your partner, your parent, even a very close friend or somebody that can have this happen to. So it's going to be if it's somebody that's close to you, it's going to be awful. And yeah, so Jolene was lining up the appointments, and by the time we got out to where we were going, we had 6 or 7 attorney appointments lined up. And so the first attorney said that Jolene talked to said, "Oh, when's your flight arriving?" And we said Sunday. And he said, "Okay, how about if I take you out to dinner Sunday night?" And that's like over the top customer service, but it actually scared Jolene because she went, "Okay, what kind of a case am I giving these attorneys that they're willing to come out on a Sunday night to another town?" They were from an adjacent town. This was in Colorado Springs. They came over from Denver. That's a pretty long drive on a Sunday. And so it actually scared Jolene a little bit. It's kind of like, if you've got a medical condition, the last thing you want is to be on the cover of the New England Medical Journal.
That's a good analogy. Made your point. I love it.
So we meet with them, and we're at this as a Mexican restaurant, and they proceeded to order several margaritas, and they treated it like they were drinking margaritas and, chowing down on the chips, and, going to dinner's fine, but their whole disposition was like we're at a cocktail party.
Uh-huh.
And one of them even made a joke about Jolene, our son's position, what happened to him. And let's call it bedside manner and demeanor was really off-putting. This was a very serious charge that could wind up with years in prison.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I'm going to bring another of my own personal pieces of background to this, which you might not know. I'm a paramedic, and one of the things that us paramedics, EMTs, people in EMS do to cope with the stress that we face and the situations that we face is we make jokes about it. And I can only imagine that in the defense attorney world, defense attorneys amongst themselves make light of the situations by joking about it in order to be able to deal with the heavy load of the stress that job entails. But we don't make those jokes to our patients, right?
No.
And and my family has gotten used to the light humor because I bring home the jokes, and I'll joke about it at the table. And they know that it's not a laughing matter. They know that that's just the way that's our mechanism of dealing with it. But it's the same thing. And you use bedside manner, you use that terminology, and that's exactly it. It's, I would not joke with somebody who's having a heart attack about something funny about, somebody dying from a heart attack. Like that would not go over very well. Right.
No.
And that's essentially what happened there. So I can only pick, you're a good storyteller, and you paint a very vivid picture of what was happening. So I can almost see myself in that room, observing this unfolding, where, here you thought that going to dinner was going to be an opportunity to really spend a decent amount of time talking about the nuances of what's going on and how they might be able to help you. And instead, they're, and I don't know whose tab this dinner was on, but maybe, maybe it was on yours. And instead it looks like they're just, they're here for a bunch of free drinks and to, and to enjoy the current moment, which I can imagine was, put a very poor feeling in or poor taste into your mouth.
Hey, I love cocktail parties, but this was the wrong context. Let's put it that way. And yet they did pick up the tab, and had they made any kind of indication about us picking up the tab after that performance, oh my, I feel sorry for them. I pity the fool, because Jolene would have let him. She left steaming. She was not happy.
I can only imagine.
So through this process, I got to know Jolene's son when he was a senior in high school. So it was very later in life. And so he's more of a friend to me. then, we don't really have that, like, he wasn't my stepson since the time he was 2 years old. So there wasn't the same connection that Jolene has as a mother,
Mhm.
to see her through this process, just the terror, the mood swings, the swinging from crying to wanting to tear somebody's eyes out who says the wrong thing. I'd never seen her like this before, Moshe. Through this whole process, and that's what was scaring me, is I went, oh my God, what have we stepped in here? What kind of hurricane has hit us?
Right.
So we throughout the next 3 or 4 days that we were there, we kept meeting with attorneys. The second one we met with, he was a decent fella, but seemed like he was fresh out of law school. It felt
I'm
like
gonna,
he was very
Jim, I'm
young.
gonna ask, I'm gonna
Nothing
ask you to
against being
repeat.
very.
I'm gonna ask you to repeat that one more time. Your internet, we had a little bit of a glitch there. So he looked like he had just
Graduated from law school. He was a
got it.
young fella. Nothing wrong with being young, that wouldn't have stopped us from using him. But his whole demeanor lacked confidence. He didn't. He asked questions that made it pretty clear that he was perhaps in over his head. We obviously didn't hire him, but my hope for him was that he would go to work at a law firm, get 5 or 10 years of good solid experience before he goes out on his own. He wasn't ready to be on his own.
Right.
And so that was, and as I'm going, Moshe, what I'm trying to do too is sort of tell you the mistakes that I saw, kind of leading up to, okay, why did we ultimately pick the one that we picked? What did they do right?
Right. And I hope that my listeners are recognizing that the purpose of going into this story in so much detail is not just for your entertainment, although it is providing some really good audio listening material. But the purpose of going through this is for you to see from a client's perspective, what does it look like looking for an attorney? And I don't want to derail you from the story, but I am going to want to backtrack to ask you, like, how did you find this list of attorneys that you booked appointments with? Right. And I know Jolene did that work. So you might not have the answer. But I'm guessing that because it was a different location, it wasn't necessarily because people you knew were referring these attorneys. So that highlights another case in point of why it's important to show up in Google and why it's important to have reviews and good reviews and a lot of them, because how does somebody find an attorney in a different state, in a different area than where they are, to handle something, especially in crisis? Like, they have to make a quick decision. What filter do they have?
Well, you're spot on. We didn't know anybody. There was nobody we could get a referral from, and which we would have done. But there's another challenge as well, because we thought about this later, Moshe. What if you've never touched on the had to come up against the criminal justice system? What if your circle of people happens to be people who have never needed defense attorneys?
Mm-hmm.
You're still stuck in getting a referral. So even if it's somebody in your own town, if you're in the criminal justice legal profession, you're going to get some clients who have never, their whole circles, just they're not involved in that. And so we were starting from scratch, and Jolene and I just decided, book as many appointments as you can while we're there. We'll see every attorney we can, and then try to make a decision based on what we see.
Mm-hmm.
So and something I should add, we weren't analyzing any of this while we were going through it at all. Everything I'm going to tell you happened late. We looked back and thought, how did these attorneys blow it? And how did this attorney do it right? And I think that's where, we're in a unique position, is that because we teach customer service, sales, marketing, how to create differentiation from your competitors, we were able to go back and sort of deconstruct what happened, and in a way that would be useful that perhaps, for people listening to this, their clients may not be able to articulate it in the way that we're going to through this conversation. And so I think I would certainly want to know if somebody could break it down for me, what went wrong and what went right in my business or in a business that was in my industry. Oh my gosh, that's incredibly valuable.
Absolutely. All
So,
right. So you had two attorneys so far. One was green or lacked confidence. One threw a cocktail party. What were some of the other experiences you had?
okay, so we went to another one, and he immediately began questioning our integrity. Like, we told him the story of what happened, and he said well, that's just not possible. That can't have happened that way. And he was completely wrong. He was this wasn't a legal opinion. I won't go into the details, but the point was he didn't know what he was talking about. And Jolene practically got in a shouting match with him. He was just condescending. We want an expert, a trusted advisor, but he came across as a know-it-all who just was abrasive. We gave him a nickname later because we couldn't remember his real name. If you've ever seen Breaking Bad, the series, there's a character in there named Tuco, who's just completely insane and out of his mind and just blows at the drop of a hat. And so that was he earned the moniker Tuco because he was just. I feel sorry for his clients. He was that bad. So he was awful.
This is not a good analogy, but you're reminding me of my experience when I go to a doctor and they start giving me examples from their own personal experience instead of telling me the medical reasoning and the literature behind it. So this happens a lot at a particular pediatrician that we go to sometimes in emergencies. And she starts telling me, oh, with this and this child, I had a similar thing, and this is what worked, and this, and I'm like, I didn't come here for your parenting experience. I came here for your medical expertise. So it's not the same thing, but I kind of felt like that was the kind of thing that you were going through.
Yeah. And he was a little unhinged. So then the next attorneys didn't do anything egregious on the surface, but what kind of some general things that we ran into, Moshe, was we'd walk into a law firm and it was very cold. I don't mean temperature wise. I mean, the reception was like, may I help you?
You weren't greeted with a smile on their face and warm and welcoming. That just didn't feel like you were walking into a hospitable environment.
Exactly. And that happened. There was a couple of times where it was like we were under accusation. What did we do wrong? This case had nothing to do with us, but we were treated almost as though we were co-defendants in a way. There was just a couple of the attorneys we went to were actually in the running. They were decent attorneys. They comported themselves professionally. They said the right things that we were wanting to hear in terms of demonstrating their expertise. They weren't jerks or anything like that, but they didn't stand out from each other in any way. They were just, okay, there's attorney A, B, and C, and they seemed pretty good. And so we left those places not with a bad taste in our mouth or anything, but just nothing tipped us in any one direction with either two in particular that were kind of rose above the others. So then we went to the final law firm, and a few things happened when we came in, and I'll try and break it down as I describe it too, so we don't have to backtrack too much. But when we went in, the receptionist said, welcome, how may I help you? And smiled at us. Now, that's a lot different than, may I help you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
Sounds subtle. It sounds like not a big deal, but it made a huge difference because Moshe, through this hurricane that we were going through, it felt like we were surrounded by darkness. We couldn't talk to people. The nature of the charges were such that, it's not something you're going to go around and start, calling all your friends and putting it on Facebook and looking for, some emotional support. The isolation was total, just complete isolation, fear, terror, stress on a level that I can't overstate. And from the time Jolene started making the phone calls, through the bail, through finding an attorney, through the travels we had to do, things happened. People came into our lives that we called beacons of light. They were like points of light in this darkness, and it could be something as simple as the flight attendant offering us a blanket. The person at the hotel we stayed in, we got like 2 bites into our meal, and we got a phone call with an attorney that could meet with us right then. And so the server could see we were under some stress. She said, hey, let me box this up for you. I'll put it in our refrigerator in the back, and then when you get back, we'll have it for you. That was, I remember it. This is years later, Moshe. I still remember it. And little points of light along the way that just made it bearable.
Right.
In the situation.
Right.
So when we got to that attorney's office, scared out of our minds, stepping out of the darkness, it was like stepping into a room with a fireplace and a sofa, and somebody says, hey, welcome, how may I help you? Come on in, make yourself comfortable. That's how it felt. It was purely emotional. It had nothing to do with their degrees on the wall or anything else. We were like when your dog gets frightened by fireworks and you're just petting it and talking into it in a soothing voice. That's what it was. And she then, she offered us a beverage. Can I get you some coffee or some water? And you're here to see, now who is it you have an appointment with? Okay, well, she'll be with you in just a moment. I'll let her know you're here. While you're waiting, can I get you a coffee or some water? Great, here you go. And we've got our sofas over here. Why don't you make yourself comfortable, and she'll be out in just a few minutes. Wow, that was completely different than what anybody else had done.
Right.
When the attorney came out, she was kind, she was professional, but she was, there was just she had a way about her where she asked questions, and it felt like going to see a really compassionate family physician, who really cares about you and how you're doing. One of the first things she asked when we sat down with her was, how are you guys doing?
Right.
Nobody'd ask us that.
Right. You're not the subject. Who cares, right?
Say that one more time.
You're not the subject. Who cares, right?
Right. Exactly. It was, and we weren't going in with a checklist of, okay, who's providing this or that. It was pure emotion. And so she's asking us questions, and when she asked how we were doing, I mean, Jolene just started crying, and it was like this pent up fear and terror and everything else. And when we got to the end of the interview, we felt really good about her. We said, okay, well, we've got 1 or 2 more people we need attorneys to meet with. We told her our situation. We're in town for 4 days or 3 days or whatever it was. And she said, well, do you mind if I ask who you've seen and who you're planning to see? And we told her who it was. And Tuco, when we mentioned his name, she just gives a shake of her head, like she wasn't going to say anything bad about him, but she was looking out for us, like, no, he's a loose cannon. But the two of the people we met with, she goes, okay, those law firms can handle this kind of a case. In fact, you guys, there's really only about 3 law firms in town that can handle what you're looking at. Those are we're one of them. Those are the other 2. Go meet with them. They would do a great job for you. Well, wow, there was no pressure like, here's a contract, sign it now.
Mm-hmm.
She was actually, and then she said, now, while you're searching for an attorney, if you have questions or anything, give us a call. We'll help you. Wow, that was something. She
Right.
didn't, she was willing to look out for our needs in a way that she just like released us. Yeah, here, go see these guys. They're great. They'll do well for you. And then we got a follow-up email from them. I don't remember what it said this far out, but it was a nice follow-up email, and again reiterating that we're here to help you and let us know what we can do for you. So after interviewing everybody, we wound up going with that particular attorney. And one of the thoughts that I had, Moshe, is, as professionals, we all spend time and energy and money developing our professional skills. If you're an attorney, you've gone to law school, you got student debt, maybe, how many years of your life did you sacrifice going to school and becoming an expert and then getting a building and all those things. And to hear, we made our choice based on somebody offering us some bottled water and talking nice to us. What does that have to do with winning in court? What does that have to do with representing your client in the best way? Nothing and everything.
Right.
Yeah, maybe there was an attorney who'd be more aggressive in court, and who knows? But they'd never get the chance because this one made us. They stood out as one of those beacons of light.
Right. And what I'm taking away from this is I think it did matter whether they were able to handle and execute on the criminal defense for you, right? I think that you were able to feel that just from the conversation, right? If they appeared knowledgeable, they appeared confident, you knew that you were in good hands. The ones that were not the right fit for what you had, you already knew from the conversation with them that it wasn't a good fit. So I think subtly that did matter, right? But it does highlight how much power compassion holds. And it's not just, criminal defense is one of those where another one where very similar is family law, where the person who you're meeting with is going through a crisis right now. Like their world is falling apart around them. Their marriage is ending, or they're not even sure if it's ending. Like, you at least knew you had somebody you needed to defend. Somebody who comes into a family law attorney, they might still be questioning whether this is the right thing for them. They probably are. Like most people who walk into the office probably haven't decided for sure that this is the right end result for them. But many other areas of law, you don't have somebody who's in immediate crisis. But at the end of the day, good bedside manner, as you had indicated before, and it's something people can understand, handling somebody with gloves, with a smile, with compassion, putting yourself in their shoes and what they might be going through, whether it's crisis or whether it's just protecting what they have, or just addressing whatever the pain point is that's bringing them to you, is massive in the impression that you make initially. And then you need to continue that throughout the experience, right? We didn't talk about what was your experience with this attorney later. And I'm guessing that experience continued in everything that she did. It wasn't just a front to get your business, right? Because you're able to sense when it's real. And if somebody was putting on a show, like I'm sure there's a ton of attorneys out there that offer you water when you come in, right? But if it feels genuine, if it feels like they're doing it from the place from in the heart, where, I know that you're going through something and I want to just do something for you that can help take the edge off, that can put you at ease for a moment, as opposed to I'm doing this because my sales guy said, my sales coach says this is what I should do to get the sale. And you can sense that in the delivery. My guess is that they probably continued that type of service to you throughout the engagement.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. The comportment that we saw in the beginning was what we got through the entire service. And you're right, backing up to what you said a second ago, it does matter how they comport themselves, because it does reflect on how professional and skilled they are as attorneys. And that's why I said it has everything and nothing to do with it. Hospitality on the surface seems like, what does that have to do with providing a good criminal defense? Well, it shows character. It goes to character, and that the person actually cares about you. And because when you've got somebody who is facing real prison time, you want someone in your corner, man. You want to know that they, on some level, feel what you're going through and are kind of invested in this situation. And you're right about the family law. I've been involved. I know exactly what you're talking about. When you have to go see a family law attorney, it is not a good situation usually. And, something I learned a long time ago, Moshe, is you always want to have your clients perceive you as the trusted advisor. And there are little things that you can do. I think the foundation is be good at your craft, be good at what you do. That's the foundation. Because if you're not good at it, you're not going to succeed no matter what you do, on the surface. So, okay, you're good at what you do. What else can you do to demonstrate to people? Because they're not going to know that until you hit the courtroom. That's where the rubber really meets the road. So what can you do before then to help demonstrate that you're the trusted advisor? Well, no, being able to speak intelligently about the law, that's big. If this woman who we hired seemed confused and everything else, it wouldn't have mattered how hospitable she was. So
Right.
You got to have the foundation. But you've got an opportunity when somebody comes in and you're doing that 30-minute free consultation, you're selling. And you're either going to do a good job selling or you're not going to do a good job selling. So why not do everything in your power to make that 30 minutes to show them that you're the obvious choice? Train your receptionist, whoever talks to them, to talk in that tone of voice, and tone is everything. Okay. You can use the exact same words and say, "How may I help you?" or "How may I help you?" All the difference in the world right there. Train them.
And people wonder, like, when I'm hiring somebody for the reception position, how do I know that they're going to be the right person there? How do I know that they're going to make people feel warm? And I just went through this in my own hiring here in-house. When somebody presents themselves to you, you get a feeling from them, right? And they either are naturally happy, like they're naturally outward and make you feel really good, or they are not, right? Or and that comes across in conversation. You spend 30 minutes in an interview with somebody and you get that feeling from them. So if that's the position that they're going to fill, make sure that that's one of your filters. That's one of the things that you're choosing when you're putting somebody into that seat. You don't want somebody who it's painful for them to smile. You want somebody who is naturally smiling and it's painful for them not to smile. And that, you got to have the right person in that seat to be able to do that. I think you can train nuances of articulation and voice, but I don't think you can train happiness. I think that somebody has to naturally be there. And if they're not, then it's going to be very hard to provide that, that experience when somebody walks in. And back to the conversation of, it feeling real, for somebody who it's not natural, it feels put on. And when it feels put on, it's repelling. It's actually does the opposite of when it feels natural and it feels inviting and warm.
Feels like a used car salesman.
Yeah, exactly. It feels like oh, everything's going to be fake. This is going to be, this whole thing's going to be a theatrical performance. And, when I'm done, we get to clap, the curtains go down. But then when we go behind scenes, that's when we see what really happens here, So you don't want that either. I want to switch gears though, because we're quite a ways into this interview. We're probably going to wrap it up soon, and we haven't talked about the FOTA Project. So you've gone through this experience, you've gone through this story, you've realized how alone you felt, how hard it was to deal with, how little there was as far as a support system for you, and the FOTA Project was born. How did that happen? How did you guys decide this is something that you wanted to do for others? What did that conversation look like between the two of you to get that started?
It's something that evolved over time. Jolene spent hundreds of hours online looking for support and looking for resources, studying, case outcomes for this particular situation. And she did manage to find a couple of online forums for people in our situation. And it was just text. It wasn't talking, and everybody had, an avatar name. It wasn't their real name. But even though it was a little disconnected, just having that and being able to talk to people in a text forum was so overwhelmingly helpful for her. And there was one gentleman on one of the forums, it was like he was the de facto moderator, not even a moderator. He would just pick people who he saw were really struggling. And he sent Jolene several responses that were like pages long on what to look for, do this, do that. I mean, we referred to him as the angel. We have no idea who he was. We did find out he passed away through one of the other people there. And through that, we went, as we were kind of coming out of the immediate emergency and just kind of, because our son wound up being sentenced. He's serving time right now. So this didn't end with the trial. It still continued. Right. And so we were thinking, these points of light that we saw meant everything. What could we do? And, how could we help? And, we thought of a lot of different things, maybe doing some sort of mentoring for people coming out of prison, or we weren't really sure. And then we had the idea, well, we have a skill set here in coaching and counseling business owners, and we're good at training. It's in our wheelhouse. Let's take what we're already good at and what's already in our wheelhouse, and let's use it to help people who are in exactly our situation. We know what it feels like. We know what it's like to be there. And so that's ultimately how it got started.
Yeah, I love that. And the best businesses are born out of somebody's need to solve a problem. And I mean, even if you just look at some of the biggest companies, Microsoft, Apple, they all were started because their founders had a problem that they wanted to solve. They solved that problem, and voila, the company was born. And I love that. That's the story behind it. Like you had to navigate the situation. You became really, really good at it. And you decided that this is something that you're going to hang your hat on. So I love that you do that. Let's switch gears to the other side of this. So how can attorneys help you? And I imagine that when people come to you for support resources, one of them is, hey, do you have any referrals for an attorney, right? So is there some sort of mechanism that you have to certify attorneys as being registered or referred or recommended by the FOTA Project? And how can attorneys use your services to send their clients to get the support that they need? What is the way that attorneys can position a partnership with the FOTA Project?
Well, that's a really good question. So let's start with your first question, and that is, do we have a system in place for doing attorney referrals? The FOTA project is nationwide, but it's also rather new. And so we have a handful of attorneys that we've already partnered with. As far as giving referrals the other direction from us to refer somebody to attorneys, we need we can definitely do that for the people that we're already working with, but it's such a small group, and we're a nationwide organization, that it's going to take a while to develop that network. But that's what we want, to be able to do that for people. It's not something we really publicize right now, because it's not really our core offering, but that is something down the road that, as our network grows, and we're able to, if somebody calls us from, I don't know, Tennessee or Minnesota or whatever, oh yeah, we've got, a couple of partners there that, we feel good about, and we know. So that's down the road a ways. To answer your next question, how do we partner with attorneys? I think it's basically just a referral relationship. Like you would, if you're an accident injury attorney, you've probably got doctors that you work with, or counselors, or what have you. We work the same way. So what provide for your clients? The core of what we do are the one-on-one counseling, typically weekly. Okay. We can do it more or less often as needed, but typically weekly. And Jolene meets with them one-on-one, and it's all about them. And as our organization grows, we're going to be adding more counselors. Right now, that's what Jolene does. And I should also add too, Moshe, that this evolved kind of organically. She was on those forums helping people and meeting with people in person who were in similar situations. And they went away. She's got a real gift in that area, being able to help people and provide them with good counseling. So this kind of evolved organically. And so it was just a natural fit for her to be the one to do that. My role is networking, doing podcasts, developing these relationships like we're doing right now. So that's the core. We do the one-on-one counseling. The second thing we offer right now is monthly online training. And that's for everybody that's one of our clients. And the third thing is we have an online resource library for our clients that is full of all the things that we found helpful through our journey, and that overcoming the isolation and the fear and all of those things. It's got just a lot of those resources that are as well as recordings of our trainings. Okay. What we're going to be adding down the road, Moshe, is as our community grows, is group settings, like small group settings for support and counseling, and eventually live events that we'll be holding around the country for people. What we asked ourselves when putting this together is, what would we have wanted during that time?
Right.
And this is it. Oh my gosh, if there'd been something like this available, it would have been huge. And so that leads to, how can attorneys refer us? Well, really easily. We'd love to chat with you. Just contact us on our website. I can give you our phone number in a minute. We'd love to talk to you and establish a referral partnership. Do we have time for me to talk about a tool, a resource that we provide for attorneys, Moshe?
Yeah, we'll get to that in a moment.
Okay.
When somebody becomes a referral partner, that they're sending people your way to get supported, is there a way for them to be financially incentivized by that? Like, do you offer a commission or a referral fee for somebody who becomes a client of the FOTA Project?
Sure, we'd be happy to talk to that, individually with any attorneys that reach out to us. Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, so I would love to know a little bit more about the tool. I'm assuming it's a free tool that attorneys can use in the process of navigating this.
Yes. So what we have is, it's called a mood survey, and we put this together to make it very easy for attorneys to use as somebody comes in for their free consultation, or even later in the process if they choose. But what it is a simple one-page sheet with 10 questions on it that the client is able to, answer and kind of give the attorney an idea of how they're doing. It's like taking the attorney that asked us, so how are you guys doing? It's that, but stepped up to an even higher level. We care so much about how you're doing. We want to find out. And here's, if you, as they're filling out their information, whatever you do at the beginning of your free consultation, well, you can also include this. And a question might be, I am having trouble sleeping, mild, moderate, severe, or what have you. And then all the attorney needs to do is look at where are they landing on these things. And we have, if their score is here to here, they're probably fine. If it's here to here, they probably need to get some support. Mm-hmm. And so we'd be happy to give that mood survey to anybody that wants it. We'll send it as a PDF. Just send us an email to connect@thefotaproject.org. Let us know that's what you want. We'll send it over to you. Another reason we developed it, and it's why we're partnering to help attorneys, is we want to make your life easier, more profitable, less stressful. And, one way to do that is to create differentiation and to demonstrate that you are the trusted advisor. And this can be one more thing to add to your arsenal. You're already a good attorney, you're already providing great service, et cetera, et cetera. So what can you do to go a step beyond perhaps what your competitors would do? Well, a tool like the mood survey is demonstrating in a real concrete way that, hey, we got your back. We really care about how you're doing. And so, yeah, we'd love to give that to anyone who wants it. And anybody who, just send us an email, the connect@thefotaproject.org, and we'll shoot it out to them.
Yeah. And the truth is that, I can envision how this would go when you're doing a consult and somebody's walking away, not sure if they want to engage with you or not. And you have given them the mood survey, and now you've looked at it, you're like, okay, they need help. And before they leave, you say, okay, we've got the legal stuff out of the way. You have your decision to make. But before you leave, I gave you this mood survey. It's clear that you need an outlet, you need a support system in place, and you don't have that. And I want to give you the resources that you need. Let me connect you with the FOTA Project. That's what they do. Have a call with them, check out their resources, and see if they can help you. And by doing that, no strings attached. Do you think that might sway them to decide to engage you when they make their decision? You've already helped them. You've already addressed part of their problem. So I definitely see the power in it from a sales and marketing perspective. That's not the place you should be coming from when you do it. It should be coming from a place of, I really genuinely want to help this person, because that can be felt. But I can definitely see where this would affect the decision-making process and probably make you more successful in your sales mechanism, your sales tactics.
It would have been a big deciding factor with us, in the search. Someone had done that. And, you talk about, and this is the sales trainer in me coming out now. This is, okay, you're probably dependent on referrals. Most businesses are. Walt Disney said, whatever you do, do it so well and so uniquely that others can't help but talk about you. And this is just one of those things that's different than what most attorneys would do. But you're right, Moshe, you're coming from a place of genuinely wanting to help people. And what I like about this tool, and I like about some of the things that we've discussed, is they're altruistic, but they're also practical. And I think that's important, because we are in the business of helping people, but we're also in business. So we need to, there needs to be that balance there, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Jim, this has been a great conversation, and I love what you're doing with the FOTA project. I think it's phenomenal. I think it's great that you took your own negative experience and are turning it into something that can help turn this around for other people, and make it a more manageable or even positive experience, for them. And I'm happy that we had you here. I'm happy we were able to highlight you, and I hope that number one, that the content that we shared was helpful to the people listening to it, and I'm sure that the whole analysis of how you chose which attorney to go with is going to significantly impact the way that people think about their process that they provide and trying to obtain new clients. But the other side of the coin of the work that the work you do, also, I don't know how many criminal defense attorneys are listening to this podcast. It's probably just a segment of our listenership, so that piece of it might not be relevant for everybody. But I hope that this also allows some of them to add this resource so that it's there to help people. And I'm guessing that this mood survey, mood analyzer, is something that anybody who's in a practice area where there is some level of stress when somebody is looking for an attorney, family law is one that I think is a great example, would also do well getting this resource from you, even if they can't send their clients to you for support because it's not what you do. This mood survey would be something that would be really beneficial for them to start doing in their own intake conversations.
Oh, absolutely. And we'll send it to anybody that wants it. I was also perhaps accident injury might apply as well. That seems, I'm not a legal expert, but that seems like would be a high stress situation. So yeah, anybody who wants it, we're happy to, Moshe.
Yeah, absolutely. Jim, thank you so much for your time, your generosity, telling the story the way that you do. You do a great job of painting the picture, weaving it through. And it's had me captivated throughout, and I'm behind the microphone. So, I can't wait for our listeners to be able to experience this episode. I'm sure it's going to be one that we hear positive feedback about. Folks, we're here twice a week. Every Thursday, we do a guest interview. Every Tuesday, I do a solo episode. Would love it if you subscribe to the show. If you're new, hit the subscribe button in your podcast player, so this way you know when we drop a new episode. And if you have been listening to us for a while and you haven't yet given us a rating or review, the ratings and reviews is how people decide whether to go ahead and take a shot, listen to an episode of ours. And we would love it if you would contribute to that pool of ratings and reviews to add to the firepower that we have of bringing new people in who can get the benefits of hearing stories like Jim's and Jolene's. So, Jim, thank you very much for being here. Folks, I'll catch you on Tuesday, and we're going to link up we're going to put the email address that Jim referenced in the show notes. They'll be in the description below the podcast in your podcast player, as well as on our website on the show notes page. So go and check that out as well. And we'll see you again soon. Thank you for tuning into the Profit with Law podcast. Your feedback is extremely valuable to us, as well as helping us reach more people with this valuable content. Please leave us a rating and review in your favorite podcast directory. Join us again next time when we are back with even more strategies to profit with law.